All you fuckmaster pounders are gonna be fapping to this video. Y'all might remember my buddy Chris Hess, right? He reluctantly joined the keto bandwagon. I've been browbeating the shit out of him for a couple years now. And he finally committed. And when he finally committed, first of all, he did that on his own. I stopped browbeating him and gave up on him like a while ago. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, all of a sudden he decided, fuck this regaining weight shit. And he doubled down, and of course he does a lot of working out and cardio and shit. So I guess the first question I have for you is, what made you like commit, you know, to really just go disciplined, stick with it? Because I know you were hitting the restaurants, you didn't want to leave a lot of the foods behind. Right. What made you finally jump on board?
Definitely bench pounds. I hit 225 and it scared the shit out of me. I was at my heaviest, I was 269, and I lost, what did I lose? A little over 70 pounds. Actually, no, more than that. Actually, it was a little over 90 pounds. I got down to 179 several years ago, and gained slowly back. And when I hit 225 again, which was, I was at Disney. If you guys remember me from Scott's Disney videos, I was at Disney. And my suit that I brought down for a wedding that I was at didn't fit me, and I was bummed about that, so the pants were like really tight. I came back, and the day that I got back from Disney, I weighed myself, and I was 225, and I almost shit myself. And it was a low point, because I identified with my own weight loss success in the past. You know, you and I have had conversations about it countless times, and so to feel like a failure in that context was really just damaging to me. And it was funny because it was a moment like that the first time when I lost weight, when I was 269, I went in to take a shower one day and saw a stretch mark, and that was the trigger for that one. And this time it was that 225 number.
Now, all this time you were regaining this weight, what was your physical activity like?
Pretty constant cardio. I've been a marathon runner for years. I'm a cyclist. What happened was I started out several years ago when I was training for my first marathon. You would turn me on to intermittent fasting, and it was incredibly successful. I dropped some weight really quick preparing for my first marathon, and then I started regaining because as I worked out more, I had more intense hunger, so I was eating larger and larger meals. And I at one point when I was in full-on training, I was consuming 7,000 calories in a meal. Sometimes I would actually seek out as high, calorically dense foods as I could, and so as my workouts went back to a normal phase, like, 5Ks versus running 10 miles or 12 miles, I wasn't burning the calories, but I was still taking them in, and it just pounded on.
You don't feel there was a metabolic drop or anything?
As far as...
during that period where you started to gain despite doing the...
You mean, like, was I not burning the...
Like,
I think my body became...
rest burning less.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think because... I wasn't working. I mean, the body wasn't requiring the glucose, and at that point, of course, I wasn't keto. So the body wasn't requiring the glucose, so it was storing everything. And I'm sure at that point too, because we talk about the foods that I used to eat. I was a mac and cheese kind of guy, burgers, fries. I was eating calorically dense
soda.
Yes, a lot of soda. A lot of beer. So it was a carb dependent diet. I look back on some, because I used to track every calorie. And I looked back a couple of years ago to some of the stuff that I was eating, and it was not uncommon for me to have a meal that was 80% carb. And, knowing what I know now, what I've learned from you and other people, that's stunning. I am surprised I didn't get bigger. So, what happened was I kept the weight at bay for the most part until last year when I got hurt. I finished a marathon in January of 17, so almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I hurt my ankle and I had to shut everything down. No cycling, no running, nothing. And my hunger didn't change because it was emotional eating. It was so partly emotional eating. Part of it was habit. Family dynamic. We connected the most during dinner time, so I really tried to extend those times with family, and that's when the eating would just continue. And I would stuff myself too. Prior military, for years, eat as fast as you can, get back to work, that kind of thing. That never left me. So I still bring that into it. And if you're, just pounding calorically dense, high carbohydrate foods, and you're not working out, if that's what you're used to, the weight just like was piled on top of me. Yeah. And I went from, we went to St. Lucia last year in November, and I remember weighing myself before I left, and I was 208. And I look at pictures of that, and I was definitely heavy there, but not like I got to. But I didn't work out at all after that. And, so I went from 208 to 225 between November and March. So that's really fast weight gain. Mm-hmm. And it scared the living shit out of me. And so I had tried keto right before that trip was the first time I tried keto. Actually, no, it was September. September of last year was the first time. I made it like 2 weeks. Keto flu hit me. I was like, fuck this. Yeah. So I went back to my regular foods and just decided I'm going to be less carby, but still eat it. Yeah. And then...
still have a pound of blueberries.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. But then you started really, like you said, browbeating me. You were pounding the shit out of me verbally about the keto, like really hounding me. You got my soon-to-be ex-wife on it, which was great. Yeah. And she was very successful with it. So I tried again right before we went to St. Lucia. And it was great. I had all kinds of like gastrointestinal changes during that process. But when we got to St. Lucia, there was no keto options. Yeah. Everything down there is carby. Yeah.
I went off the
you went off it too. We both went off it. There were eggs there, but
I only regained 3 pounds.
Yeah, I didn't gain much while I was down there. It wasn't that, but when I came back, I had been off of it, so I said screw it. And then a month later, it was like 2 weeks later, we went to Disney. Yeah. And
went off the rails a little later.
Yeah, I have learned you can be keto at Disney because there are regular restaurants. You can find keto options, but yeah. I had that mentality. I'm in Disney. What happens in Disney stays in Disney. So I ate my face off for the 7 days we were down there, and that was the beginning of it. Then they had the holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Beer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so it just went on.
So your starting weight was and your current weight?
I was 225.6.
Now, was that when you started keto or?
Yes, I came back from Disney. I came back March 1st. Okay. And I weighed myself that next morning. I came back the last day of February. I came back. So March 1st, the morning of March 1st, I was 225.6 pounds. Okay. At my lowest, which was yesterday, because I had a nice big meal last night for dinner. Yesterday, I was 174.8, I think.
Wow. Yesterday. So over 50 pounds.
Over 51 pounds.
Yes.
Or just under 51 pounds.
What was your belt? Did you measure your belly back then? Or?
I did. So I have all my measurements. I could probably forward them to you so you can post them. So 7 inches off my chest, 11 inches off my belly, 7 inches off my waist, and 4 inches off my thigh.
So you attribute it to keto alone or keto and the cardio?
Keto and cardio, I would say. I think keto alone can do it. But I will. No, actually, I don't think it does. I actually have found that in the weeks that I had large amounts of cardio, so whether it was longer runs or longer bike rides, I actually lost less weight. Now, I have not, and I've been adamantly against tracking calories. Yeah. I don't even track macros at this point because I know what I'm eating.
Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't, right. And I do find that when I overeat, my energy levels rise. I have a harder time sleeping. When I undereat, I feel drained. So my body tells me when it's time either to start eating or to stop eating.
And it does that. It's one of the things I always say about keto, it's not necessarily a weight loss diet. It makes your body regulate its energy balance so that you don't have to, count calories or anything like that. You eat when you're hungry, you stop eating when you're full, and you don't eat again until you get hungry. If I think you probably, now tell me if I'm wrong, when you're doing all the massive amounts of cardio, you probably get a lot hungrier and take a little longer to get satiated when you eat than when you don't have any physical activity. Would you say?
No, that's actually not the case at all. No? As a matter of fact, I find that I have a harder time eating a large meal after a long workout. The next day, so for example, if I go out and I run in the morning and I do a 10-mile run, I have no hunger. There is no hunger. I even have a hard time convincing myself to eat for hours and hours afterward. But even if I do eat, it'll be a regular sized meal. I generally get full pretty quickly, but I'll wake up the next morning ravenous. It's more that next morning.
So it takes a while for
Yeah, I think it takes a while because and my belief is that you use up the glycogen in your muscle stores. Your body uses whatever it already has available prior to that eating to replenish those stores, but then there's the rest of the fat is expelled. And I think there literally is just a lack of nutrients for the body to use, and it kicks in. I think it's a different hormone reaction that's kicking that in.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of things though that I think are important to note specifically to me is that I'm not just keto, so I'm not eating keto 3 meals a day. I have been on the warrior diet for 4 years, and I'm even doing keto on the warrior diet. So I have a 20-hour eat window, 20-hour fast window, 4-hour eat window, and I'm still doing that. So, and the other thing that I also found too is that I get more success if I eat earlier in the day, less success if I eat later in the day. If I eat earlier, 2-3 p.m., I tend to not want to snack as much later on. But if I eat at 6-7 p.m., I'm still really, really hungry into 10-11 p.m. Yeah. It's because my body's trained to eat for 4 hours now. So I try to eat as early as I can, and usually I don't want to snack heavily right before bedtime. And I found that's offered some success as well.
What is your typical meals? Lay out when you get to your 4-hour eating window, whenever roughly that is. What do you typically eat on, an average day?
One of the things that I believe helped me succeed in this is that I also went through a psychological change where I decided that I wasn't going to look at food emotionally anymore, that I needed to divest my emotional and psychological connection to the food and no longer make it about that routine, but rather this is what I need to fuel my body. So with that said, I don't get that depletion anxiety that some people get when they go keto, that idea of, I'm missing all those foods I used to love. So I have really kind of limited my diet to just a few options of eating. I practically live at Longhorn restaurants. This is not a sponsored video, by the way. But I will, if I go to Longhorn, for example, I've gone through several different iterations of what I eat there, but what I've settled on now that I stick with quite religiously is I get, they have this awesome, these stuffed mushrooms, very small amount of panko on them, so I don't worry about the carbs that are in there, but they're just covered in cheese. So I eat an entire order of the stuffed mushrooms. I do a 12-ounce rare prime rib, and I basically smother the meat with their horsey sauce, their horseradish mayonnaise. And then I get, instead of a side, I get double salad, no croutons with extra blue cheese. So I'm getting a shit ton of fat, just the right amount of protein. And the only carbs I'm getting on that at all are a little bit of carrots, the tomatoes that are in the salad, and whatever panko crumbling is on top of the mushrooms, but very little. So that'll be my dinner. And then what I have settled on recently that is working very well for me is I'll eat an entire pint generally of Enlightened ice cream, a couple different flavors I like. They're all very, very low in carbs. An entire pint I think is like 36 grams of carbs. So I think I'm taking in somewhere between 55 and 60 grams of carbs a day, which technically should knock me out of keto, but I think because of the amount of physical work I do every day, so even when I'm not doing cardio, I have a physical job. So I'm burning calories like crazy every day. And I do not find myself getting knocked out of ketosis. And
you confirm with the...
I have not been using keto strips. I have found I can tell when I'm knocked out of keto by how my stomach feels in the morning. Like I can sense the bloat now. Yeah. And that's usually a good indicator for me. So I've gotten away from counting macros, counting calories, and I haven't used keto strips in a while either. And as long as the weight keeps going down, I'm not going to worry about it. If the weight starts going back up again, then I might start getting concerned.
And I agree. I think most people who are on keto will notice when they fuck up, there's definitely telltale symptoms. You do get bloated, like your stomach will just pop right out like you're pregnant.
Headaches too.
And yeah, and your energy will tank. It's you just don't feel good. You don't feel like ready to take on the world. Whereas when you're properly fueled, you took in the right amount of food, and you didn't go off the rails of ketosis, then you feel on point with your energy, and you're pretty level too, as far as emotionally.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that's important to note is that I've been going through this process in the midst of a really contentious divorce, really ugly contentious divorce. So the weight loss started March 1st, and on June 8th, which was the day that our marriage ended, I was 208. So I lost 17 pounds prior to my wife and I separating, and I've lost the rest of it since then. So between June 8th and today, or yesterday was at my lowest weight. I've lost the rest of the weight. However, I definitely have gotten to a pretty stringent plateau where there's not much left to lose. I have a little bit of hanger-on adipose tissue around the belly region.
I think as you continue to do cardio, that'll slowly...
Yeah, I'm thinking so, and and then and there's some skin. I definitely got some skin hang my tricep area, lower gluteals, and on my stomach for sure. That's just going to take time for that stuff to go away. One thing that I do have that I swear by is that I have an electrolysis scale, so I get exacting body measurements every time I step on the scale, so I know exactly where my body fat percentage is, my bone mass, my muscle mass, and tracking those numbers along with the weight I think makes a huge difference. So like I had a naysayer on Facebook the other day when I had posted about my weight say, yeah, but how much muscle did you lose? Well, I can go on there and tell them I lost 6.4 pounds of muscle. So with 51 pounds of weight loss, only 6.4 pounds of it was muscle. And if I'm not carrying around 47 pounds, or 45 pounds? Yeah. I don't need that 6 pounds of muscle. And that's why you lose it. Yeah. And I lost a little over 3/4 of a pound of bone. Which, Wolf's Law, if you don't have the weight pressure on the bones, you're going to lose the bones. That's why they tell you to do impact cardio as you get older so you don't lose your bone density. So obviously I'm going to lose some bone mass off my spine, off my hips, and off the big bones of the legs.
Another thing to note is fasting. When you do the longer fast, which I know you've done occasionally, that is kind of the source of some of your minerals and electrolytes. But the thing is that regenerates over time based on if you eat properly when you refeed. So that could be part of it. But you're right. As muscle is use or lose. If you're not using it, your body will say, oh, we have this, and it'll fucking take it right off you. I contend that any lean mass lost is just for what you said, because you're not carrying as much body weight and stuff like that. Because I've noticed throughout my journey that my strength level has not changed. I can still lift the same heavy shit that I was lifting when I was 255 pounds. It's just I don't need as much muscle to walk around, which is changing now that I'm hiking with 50, 60 pounds on my fucking back. But that's kind of what you take into account with the lean mass. And if you want to keep that lean mass, obviously you're going to have to go and do resistance training to keep that built up. But that's an endless process. You have to keep going and lifting and going, because when you stop, then your muscles start to go away. Any bodybuilder will probably tell you that. So
yeah, I could argue all day long about the lack of necessity for weightlifting. The other thing to keep in mind too that I think has helped with me maintaining muscle is that because I was not only in ketosis, I was also IF. When you're in a fasted state, your body's going to produce more human growth hormone in response. That's part of how we stay alive when we're in a fasted state. So I think it's kind of like the perfect storm of good decisions. Obviously, like anything else, it's all psychological. You have to be in the right mindset to do it. You can't just say, "Okay, I'm going to do it," and then you'll succeed. You've got to be ready.
You got to commit.
You got to commit, and you got to, And I've had plenty of people come up and talk to me about it recently. You have to be ready for the keto flu. And just when you think you're going to get it and it doesn't come, it's going to come. Just you hold on to your ass because it's coming. And the longer you've been, damaging the shit out of your pancreas, the longer you're going to be in the keto flu when you get
fatty liver and fatty pancreas take a while to resolve after you've become fat adapted.
So one thing I wanted to talk about that you mentioned was the blueberry thing. So I've gone back to eating, I'm not eating a pound of blueberries a day like I used to, but I am eating a pint of blueberries almost every day. One, because they have wonderful antioxidant properties. They're also a natural anti-inflammatory because I'm dealing with some back injury stuff that's going on right now from work related. But I've also noticed that I feel the insulin spike, and I never did before. Yeah. So when I eat those foods now, my body's actually doing what it's supposed to. Before, when I was eating carbs every day, I had insulin resistance.
Yeah, your fasted insulin would have been higher.
Yeah, so now I only feel that real sugar high, and I'm getting a sugar high on blueberries.
Which are fucking low glycemic.
Right, and I'm feeling it on blueberries. So like I can only imagine. Now there was a time when I was going through that weight gain. This is a no joke story. Around Christmas time last year, I remember twice in 1 week. This is how bad I got. Twice in 1 week, I consumed an entire 3-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids. So you want to talk about just trying to kill yourself with sugar. That was, so I went from eating a 3-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids in a sitting and probably drinking 3 20-ounce sodas with it, while playing video games at 41 years old at the time. That would not even spike me. Like, I would still be tired and go to bed just fine. Yeah. Now I eat literally a pint of blueberries and I'm bouncing off the wall and have a hard time sleeping. So your body adjusts. It'll say, you don't need this. You're good. Yeah. One thing that I've noticed, that even that meal, and you asked me what I eat, that was just one thing I eat. I eat a lot of, I want to go back and address that in case anybody was like, well, what the hell else does he eat? Like tonight, for example, I ate 10 hot wings, absolutely bathed them in blue cheese. And I had a Cobb salad with it. So, it's got egg on it. It's got a bunch of cheese. It's got chicken.
So you're really making sure to get your fats in.
Oh, I get a ton of fat. Yeah, and I really look for the fats. If it's got avocado, give it to me. I'll eat all kinds of avocado. When I make a salad at home, I drench it in olive oil. A lot of hard-boiled eggs, a lot of cheeses. Sometimes I'll just sit and eat cheese. I also find that a lot of I can't finish food before. Scott, you've been around me long enough. You've been to restaurants with me where I would literally order 2 full meals.
Yeah, I used to bust his balls quite a bit because I remember this one time we went to Tully's and you had 2 fucking full entrees and an appetizer.
Soup, yeah. I had French onion soup and 2 full meals. So. And I would knock that shit down like it was like water. And now I go and get a 12-ounce prime rib, 2 little salads. I mean, we're talking about they're small little side salads they give you. So I eat 2 of those, a 12-ounce prime rib, which is about that big, and I have some stuffed mushrooms. And there's literally like 6 mushrooms. They're covered in cheese. I can't finish that anymore.
Wow.
So I can't even finish that.
So your appetite has really down-regulated quite a bit.
Yeah, well, even more than that. When I'm hungry, I'm never ravenous. I'm like, if I don't eat, I'm going to kill somebody. Like that hanger. I don't ever get hanger.
Yep.
I'm just like, you know what? I need to eat soon. And what I find is if I don't eat right away, by the time I get food, I'm not hungry anymore. It's almost like, this will actually probably hurt if I eat it. I probably don't want to eat right now.
And I find that a lot of people don't even know that they feel that way when they're on the standard American diet. Because I'm trying to help, many of you know I'm trying to help Christy. She has failed multiple times to even achieve ketosis because she doesn't go more than 3 or 4 days before she's off the rails on it. But a lot of people don't understand that what you're feeling on the standard American diet or as a carb burner in terms of hunger and having to eat, and we all make fun of Christy with the snacks in the videos because that's kind of her nickname in the videos, but that's a legit hormonal deficiency. That's a problem when you become food obsessed and you're thinking about food all the time. That is not normal. That is not how our bodies take care of our energy balance. It means that you're not hearing your hunger hormones, leptin in particular, insulin, high insulin levels, and if you're on the standard American diet, your insulin levels, even fasted, are a lot higher than they should be, and that blocks leptin signaling, which is what your fat cells release to tell your brain, hey, we got enough fat, we're good, you're not hungry. Instead, because of the amount of processed foods and sugars and vegetable oils, we fucked up the system so good that even when, like an hour after you eat a big ass fucking meal, you might be ready for some snacks. And
that's exactly it.
And just, I find that a lot of people need to really, if you're thinking about keto, you should really wake up to that. And once you escape it, and it takes a while, it takes a good 6 to 8 weeks and that's with no cheat days, no fucking around, to really experience that lack of hunger, that lack of food obsession. The highest peak level for me, I don't get ravenous, but I'm not as physically active. There are times when I'm a little extra hungry, particularly after my hikes lately. And that's, like you said, the day after usually.
Yeah, the day after is when it hits.
And I literally, like when I've done a fasted hike, and then the next day my energy levels tank and I'm fucking hungry as shit. I'm good the day of, like I do the hike no problem the day of, but when I wake up that next day, my body's like, hey, we ain't got to do this again. What the fuck's wrong with you, piece of shit? It's really that level of hunger is all normalized on keto. You will not be hungry all the time. You will not be thinking about food from the time you fucking wake up to the time you go to bed. Yep. And that leaves a lot of room for other life improvements, I think.
Yeah, I would have to agree. There was a time when I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't even get out of bed yet, and I would be talking to my soon-to-be ex-wife about what we were going to have for dinner. I look back at that and it's ridiculous. There are days now that it's literally dinner time and I have no idea what I want. I know I should eat something, but I have no idea what I want. And and I was raised in an Italian household, where food was, and I think that's ultimately one of the problems, is that food was the connector. That was the family connector. And by removing that from my lifestyle, I think it's made a huge difference.
So you mentioned, and I'm well aware of, that you've been going through a lot of serious stress and emotional things in the past, I'd say 4 months?
A little bit less than 4, yeah.
And one of the things I talk about with keto is how we're able to better cope with that due to being on keto when you compare it to when you were on the standard American diet. Have you noticed a change in your coping ability with the stress and anxiety and depression? Because I've always known you've had a certain level of anxiety. I'm wondering did that improve at all?
Well, I think it must have. In the midst of what I have going on, I haven't analyzed it quite in that way. I do know I haven't had a mental breakdown. I have not had a screaming match with anybody. My soon-to-be ex and I have had a couple of really contentious arguments, but I think that's natural in a divorce. But for example, my children, it wasn't uncommon for me to just be at my wit's end and lose my cool with my kids, and I can't remember the last time I had to yell at my children. I have a vocation where I'm not really upset at work very often, but I haven't had any kind of interactions that have upset me at work. So I would say absolutely, especially given how dynamic my stress is right now. The fact that I'm not feeling a lot of anxiety or feeling anxious. I do believe that I'm having some stress-related issues going on in my life, but I think part of that is just because I'm handling it emotionally so well that my body's reacting to it in a different way. But this really has been, for somebody that was prior military, I crashed in a helicopter. I crashed on a motorcycle. I've been, I was a bouncer for years and in plenty of really dangerous situations. Nothing that's ever happened in my life compares to the last 3 months as far as stress levels. And the fact that I have not had a breakdown or a meltdown or lost my shit or killed somebody probably is a testament. I couldn't imagine if I was eating mac and cheese every night. I have to feel like I would probably be a little bit more angry than I am right now. Yeah, I think that's probably safe to say.
So yeah, the standard American diet, particularly, I've been researching a bit lately, and I'm going to do an entire video on this subject, fructose intolerance. It turns out 40 to 50% of us don't tolerate fructose very well, and one of the symptoms is depression and anxiety. Not to mention when you spike dopamine to that level, you have that reward-seeking behavior, and part of that is anxiety. So, all of these I found for me improved, not perfect. And there are still some foods within the keto diet that can fuck you up in these realms. And that's where the carnivore experiments come into play. But for the most part, when I compare myself to 4 years ago, at my heaviest, eating whatever the fuck I wanted, drinking Mountain Dew, getting shit-faced all the time, I am nowhere near that low level, and I'm hoping that one of the questions I'm going to ask is I interview people that are successful with this, and I do plan on doing more of these interviews when I have the opportunity. I'm hoping I hear similar stories. So if you have a similar story on your keto journey where you were able to, despite the shit because life's going to keep feeding you shit, It's whether or not that shit sends you on that downward fucking rock bottom spiral like it used to for me and doesn't anymore, or if you're able to better manage that stress or whatever causes your depressions and so on and so forth, to where maybe they're just not as bad and you get over it. I'm not saying you're not going to be down a little or you're not going to have a little worry, but you're not going to be in like that icy grip of anxiety and depression that can happen on a standard American diet. So feeding yourself properly is a key to help with mental health. It's not the cure. There's other things to do with your lifestyle to help with that, to lower the amount of stress. But it definitely helps you manage more, in my opinion.
I would say exactly the same thing. I think mixing that with, meditation and you want to find, to balance out any kind of cortisol response, so any kind of stress hormone response with your body, you got to have some kind of serotonin or dopamine in order to balance that out. So, I'm a big fan of, if you can't run, walk, ride a bike, go swim, do something. I'm a body worker by profession, so I'm going to always tell people to do something with their body. That's why I was so excited when your lethargic ass started hiking, because prior to that, you weren't doing shit.
True.
And we've had this argument before. I'm actually adamantly against weightlifting. I think weightlifting is ridiculous and stupid. Picking things up and putting them down for health is just dumb.
Yeah.
All it does is change your body aesthetically. However,
hiking with heavy shit.
I think that's different because you're hiking. You're not. I mean, if you put a pack on and just did squats, I'd tell you you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But, you put a pack on and go walk through the woods, well, you're accomplishing something. Because at the end of the day, being in greenery is beneficial. I mean, there's plenty of studies that are showing just being around green helps the human mind, cope quite a bit.
Another part of that I've studied as far as getting out there in nature is one of the things about us when we're like at home all the time or we're inside all the time, we limit our exposure to bacteria in nature, and that influences our gut bacteria. There's believe it or not, an ecosystem on your skin of bacteria, and when we're symbiotic with these bacteria, we don't function very well when it's all fucked up. And of course, when we're sanitized in our houses, breathing this fucking shitty air all the time, and we don't get out and get our vitamin D, we're just kind of taking that part of the health away that we don't even fully understand yet, because gut health is just now being starting to be explored in its relationship to all of these things, including mental health, because tryptophan is mainly gotten from gut bacteria, and your gut bacteria has to be in good condition. You got to not have leaky gut, and you have to have that balance, or else you won't get it. You won't get the tryptophan being the precursor for serotonin. You won't get that contentment level. You'll feel depressed. So there's a lot that goes into the science behind it. And I believe being out in nature is just kind of a way of getting us back to what we're designed to be doing, because we are not designed for all of this. So as often, I would advocate to go as often as possible, and one of the reasons you guys see me doing all these fucking videos out in nature with my friends is I'm having more and more people, like it's starting to become almost overwhelming, the amount of people that want to come out there with me now. Like I have people introducing me to people that want to come out on these trips now, and I think there's something to be said that it's helping balance both mentally and physically in many ways, getting out there. And I can tell you, for me, I'm addicted to it. Like we're going hiking again Tuesday. We just went to Frenchman's Island over the weekend. I filmed that. So this is going to be a regular part of my life going forward, because I believe it balances me out with all the other shit I do. So you're happy I was hiking, huh?
Yeah, happy to see you do anything physical whatsoever. Yeah, because I'll tell you what, I watched those first few videos when you started hiking, and you were like a 12-year-old girl with that pack. You were having a hard time moving around, and you got kind of whiny.
Wait till you see the Tinker Falls video. 2 miles uphill the whole way.
Nice.
60 pounds. I weighed it before we went.
Nice. Good. I'm proud of you.
So it was the most weight I ever carried, and I probably was more like a little girl on that one too. And I had the GoPro going the whole time, so there'll be plenty of me whining and
awesome.
And
Good.
climbing.
Yeah, I'll have to join you on one of these. Unfortunately, I work far too much to
Yeah.
possibly even get out for one of those things.
You're busy and shit.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for, do you have anything else you wanted to say about the diet or?
No, if anybody watching this, I'm not sure how you're going to use keywords in this, but if anybody is watching this specifically because I am an athlete and I'm keto, because there's a lot of questions that people have of me knowing that I'm athletic and how does that affect my ability to perform. I have definitely noticed not a decrease in ability to function, but rather that it functions differently. So what specifically long runs, for example, or long bike rides, I notice that I can feel the burn of the glycogen in my muscle stores for the first 30 minutes. Generally, first 30 minutes of a run, first 30 minutes on the bike, I am fine. I have an excess of energy. I feel great. Especially if I'm rested, it feels fantastic.
And part of that is you do maintain glycogen stores.
Your body will naturally, you have to have a certain amount of glycogen in your
gluconeogenesis runs constant.
Correct, and so your body, your muscle mass, based on how much or how large the striations are of your muscle belly, whether it's type 1 or type 2 muscle, fast twitch, slow twitch. So like a cardio person versus a weightlifter are very, very different types of muscles. I'm cardio, I do no weightlifting, so I have very large, slow twitch muscle mass, and so I can store a large amount of glycogen. So I get 30 minutes, a good solid 30 minutes of workout at a competitive level before I feel the tank burn or gas out, if you will. And I started to really pay attention and mark down my memories of that transitionary period when my body goes into burning ketones, burning fat directly for energy. And you feel the difference. The muscle feels differently. So for me, before when I was a glucose runner or running more on carbs, like when I would carb load, for example, you would feel that transition happen when you were out of it and you literally just had to slow down. I don't slow down. What I sense now is that I have to just change my gait. I change my gait a little bit, I change my stride, but what does happen is my heart rate goes up. And that is very common with keto, is that in order for your body to move the fat cells properly for gluconeogenesis, your heart has to beat faster. So what will happen is I have a certain speed when I go for a run, for example. I have a certain pace that I can maintain with a 145 beats per minute heart rate. After 35 minutes, in order to maintain 35 minutes, in order to maintain that pace, my heart rate may jump to 165. So I, at that point, have the option of slowing down to keep if I'm running to heart rate, which, of course, if I'm trying to avoid lactate and bonking down the road, I got to slow down. Or, like if I'm running a 5K or a 10K, maintaining that pace, knowing that I can absorb the lactate in time before I have a breakdown from that, then I just have to accept the higher heart rate. So it's a trade-off, because as your body uses oxygen differently for ATP generation, you get lactate if you don't have the glucose you need. So that's the difference, and it's subtle, and it depends on what you're doing. Now, I did read a book about keto running and fasted running, and their approach is, if you're going to be a keto athlete, train keto, run keto every time, cycle keto every time, but on event day, about 3 hours before your event, eat some carbs. And that way you have that backup. So your glycogen stores are already set. Now you just have glucose in your body. 3 hours does not give your body time to have the insulin respond and store it as fat, so the glucose molecules are still going to flow through your bloodstream. So as you deplete your glycogen stores, you have ready accessible glucose to replenish your stores really quickly. It'll give you a lot longer of that high energy burn time. I have not had an event per se since that required that, so I haven't tried it out yet, but that's what the current thinking is among the athletic community that is keto, is that's the way to approach it. But the old days of carb loading, eating a pound of pasta the night before a run, that's still absolute horseshit. Stay the fuck away from that. You should.
When you carb load, what do you carb load with, or what would you carb load?
If I was going to do it, probably fructose. If not fructose, then an actual energy bar. I'm not a huge fan of Cliff Bars.
Why not something a little healthier than that?
Well, you got to be careful because if it's low glycemic, it's not going to do you any good because the fiber is going to wash it all anyway. So it's got to be something low fiber. So that's why I like the idea of fruits. But a lot of the bars are designed for fast burn. So whether it's a Cliff Bar or Lara Bar or any one of those kind of things, that can be really effective. Believe it or not, when I used to run competitively and cycle competitively, the best immediate energy source I found were sweet tarts, the candy sweet tarts, because it's just pure fructose. It's
yeah, but my problem is fructose gets converted to fat.
Not if you burn it before it has a chance to work through the liver.
Because fructose can only be processed by the liver.
Right, but your
glucose, on the other hand, the other half of the sugar molecule goes in. So why wouldn't you carb load with something like a starch that is all glucose?
I don't think you have time. I don't think with the starch you have the time to get the access to it. Again, I haven't played with it. This is just the reading that I've had. They didn't speak to specific foods you should eat. I honestly, if I'm going to poison my body with sugar at this point, from what I've learned, I'm at least going to do it with a fruit, rather than doing it with a candy bar.
And there's plenty of really sugary fruits like grapes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Grapes are fantastic. Strawberries are fantastic, and apple. Actually, the apple. I've brought apples back into my diet too. I forgot to mention that earlier, but high in fiber, low in net carbs. Fantastic fruit, full of antioxidants and a lot of really healthy enzymes in an apple.
So you're more on it sounds like you're getting more towards the targeted ketogenic diet where when you work out, you'll allow yourself
more carbs.
More carbs.
Absolutely. And I feel better when I do that as well. And I can feel the wave of energy and I feel the differences throughout the day. Although I still survive on coffee. I wouldn't, some people are, there's more of a push against coffee again. Now I consume a large amount of coffee every day. I live on coffee.
I hear you there. It's my last vice.
Yeah, and I won't let it go. So I don't smoke. And I do still drink wine. I went a couple months without it, and I had some really great weight loss during that time. But I've had some great weight loss since I added wine back to my diet. Really dry reds, so Cabernets, Merlots, Pinots, Shiraz, those kind of things. They're very low in net carbs. A 6-ounce pour of a Cabernet, I think, is only net 5 grams of carbs. Yeah. So drink up. Mm-hmm. The downside is, if you get overly intoxicated, it's going to knock you into ketosis. But then,
well, you also if you overwhelm your liver,
that's the other piece.
Liver fat,
correct?
Fatty liver that takes a while to resolve. But I will say that you probably were able to resolve your fatty liver, which I know you had, a lot quicker with the cardio than without.
I would have to agree. Absolutely.
So I do agree there. I noticed during some of my hikes that my belly measurement would appropriately drop even if my weight didn't change.
Sure.
So
and some of that's water too. I mean, I definitely notice big swings of weight that are definitely obviously water based.
Yeah.
And the one thing, funny side note, and I know your audience will probably appreciate this. I've gotten into this habit now. I weigh myself as soon as I get out of bed. So I don't wait for anything else. So that way I know I'm getting a completely fasted raw weight every time I go to bed.
Do you pee first?
Well, I almost always pee first thing in the morning. So yeah, I pee first, weigh myself. And then...
That's the right way to do it too.
Yeah. And
less variables.
So what I have found is that I've become almost like Pavlov's dog. As soon as I smell coffee, I have to shit. And I don't shit every day, but on the days that I do shit, I do reweigh myself because I like the game. So I like to see exactly how much I shit off, and I count that.
There's been times when I've taken a shit and I got on the scale.
And you weighed more?
I weighed on the scale before and I went on the scale after, and I lost no weight. And
yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? And it was like an island. Like it was above the water. And I'm like, that had to be like a half a pound or a pound. No. So I don't know what the fuck.
You either got a shitty scale. I don't know. I've seen some pretty good weight losses off of some pretty healthy shits.
But to the point, water and food weight are a factor, and to minimize that, you want to weigh yourself right after your morning piss every morning. If you care about the scale that much, I'm more of a tape measure guy now than the scale guy because I know I'm putting on some muscle hauling that heavy shit up the trail. And as long as my belly stays below 36 for me, is fine. So,
yep.
You've gotten down to what, 34, 33?
No, you know what's weird? My measurements. I'm wearing 32 pants now.
Yeah.
But my measurement is still 34 or something like that.
On the belly, right?
The belly.
Yeah, around the belly button.
Yeah, I have to check that again. I think right around there.
34.
Yeah, something like that.
So.
It might be smaller. I haven't measured myself since last week, so I'm not sure where it's at right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a lot. I lost 11 inches. I have a belt that I'm using right now that I could no longer get the first. I could no longer get the first one, and now I have only one left to go before it's too small or too big of a belt.
Yeah. I'm at
80% of
my belt currently.
Nice. 80% of my wardrobe is too big on me now. I have a $1,000 Calvin Klein fitted suit that I look like I'm wearing Daddy's suit. I have to get that. I have to get that fitted or tailored. So, but I went from being back in right before I reached my maximum weight. I started buying extra large shirts again. So extra large T-shirts, and now anything larger than a medium is too big on me. So I'm wearing mediums. I just put a new shirt on today. It's a medium. So, and I have a couple of mediums that are almost too big. Yeah. So I might actually end up, if I continue this weight loss, I may end up in a small. For frame of reference, when I came out of the Marine Corps boot camp back in 1994, or 1995, I graduated boot camp. I was 159 pounds, full 6-pack abs. I could do 25 pull-ups. I could run a 6.5 minute mile. I was 159 pounds. I think that is the absolute lowest weight without starving myself that I could reach.
Well, I think I think you mentioned this when we talked about this before, that as you aged, you've put on strength and muscle over the years, so it might be physically impossible to get down to that weight.
True. So, and right now, for example, again, like I said, I have a very accurate scale. This morning I had 134.3 pounds of muscle. So that means that if I have 134 pounds of muscle and I weigh 134 pounds of muscle, if I weigh 174 pounds, that's only 40 pounds of bone, fat, and water. Bone, fat, and water is all the rest of it. So, and like this morning, I was 19.4% body fat, and that's ideal.
Yeah.
However, and this is why I do know that I have an above average muscle mass, because the BMI number is still 25.9.
Yeah.
So technically, by BMI standards, I'm still overweight. But there's no way I'm overweight. I mean, my numbers don't. My
body fat percentage is more of the.
Yeah. So I'm still in the high end of what's considered healthy, but I'm in the healthy range. I'm right, actually, just above dead center of the healthy range for body fat.
Yeah.
But I'm still technically overweight by BMI standards, which means that I have a higher than normal muscle mass.
I've touched normal BMI twice, but I don't stay there very long.
Yeah. So and a lot of that I think is because we both are regular fasters and the such, I don't think we're going to lose that muscle.
Yeah.
And because we're not going to lose that muscle, we're going to be proportionally off pretty much forever.
Yeah.
Just because of the muscle mass.
Now for the moment of truth, I'm going to show you. He's going to give me a picture of before his weight loss journey with keto, and we'll just go ahead and do a quick, spin around in front of the camera.
Sure.
It's not freaky in any way.
I'm not going to dance or anything.
This is where we're at, and you can probably see in some of the previous videos he had a much bigger bulge down in the belly area.
was. I mean, it was literally out to here. There's no doubt about it. This is about where I was.
Yeah.
And the chest too. I've noticed the certain shirts that I wear that used to fit me perfectly. Now this seam is here. They're so big on me. So even in shoulder width, I'm smaller. So it's crazy how much of an effect it's had.
Yeah. So between that and he's charted his weight loss, he's a data-driven gadget motherfucker. He's got Bluetooth in his asshole, so he knows how to keep track of everything. So he has all his numbers. The reason I did this interview is he's definitely surpassed me in terms of physique or whatever at this point, because he works out a hell of a lot more than I do. And it's achievable, and you're going to be kicking and screaming just much like he was in the beginning. But once you get a taste of that where you're healthy, you won't want to go back. You won't want to go back to feeling like shit, being hungry all the time, emotional eating all the time. And you'll feel good about yourself a lot more once you get there. But it takes time, and you got to not cheat. you know, and even, and if you want to do what he's doing, the targeted, you know, ketogenic, where you can have a little bit more fruit in your life and a little bit more carbs, you know, he's above my carb level. If I go above 50, I'm fucked. But he's also doing a lot of work physically to be able to do that. And I, you know, imagine he tries to be smart about it. And am I right with that? You try to structure your higher carb intakes around your workout type stuff, or do you just do it whenever?
No, I generally do it when I have low energy. If for some reason I have low energy, that's usually when I feel the need for it.
Yeah.
I find that I feel that need for sugary food. Not a lot of sugary foods. I hate saying that, but the carb intake. I feel that need more when I have a very high fat meal.
Yeah.
It's almost like my body saying, you know what, your percentages are a little off. You should, because I think ultimately, like, we strive to have keto be below a certain number of grams of carbs. Yeah. I think more likely than not, it's a percentage aspect, at least as far as how the body responds. Because if I'm too carb low, I definitely feel it. And you know, honestly, I've probably had less grams of carbs in the last month than the average person in the standard American diet has in a day.
That's true stuff.
You know, and so when I am low on carbs, I still feel it. And it's not, I want to be clear, it's not like a loss of energy. Like, I'm not tired. It's more outlook. It's like an emotional state. It's more, not cloudy. It's not that. I mean, carbs make you cloudy, that fog. It's not that. It's just, it's almost like a craving, but not, because like cravings, you're like, oh my god, I have a sweet tooth, I want to have some sugar, I need a brownie. Yeah. Like, it's not like that. It's just something in my body's like, you know what, you need some ice cream, you know, yeah. or you need some blueberries, you know, go get something like that, you know. Yeah. That's more what it tells me, because like before. Or the other thing is the Veronica's Health Crunch. That's,
yeah,
you know,
that's my demon.
Yeah, every once in a while but I can't.
1,000 calories a bag.
So that's another thing though. There was a time where I could so easily, without even thinking twice about it, knock down an entire bag of that shit.
I still can.
I cannot. I can't get halfway through a bag without feeling overwhelmed. And even if I'm starving, there's something about the density of that food that if I get a half a bag in, I can't go any further. Yeah. So but blueberries. I can easily knock down a pint of blueberries. The Enlightened, or some people like Halo Top. I prefer Enlightened because I think it's creamier than the Halo Top. The Halo Top feels more like false food. But the Enlightened, I can very easily knock down a pint of Enlightened without a problem. Yeah. And I don't ever feel like I've snacked afterward. Like, I feel satiated, but I don't feel like I cheated. I don't feel like, I'm all carved up now. Never. Not ever. So I like those foods.
And just for the record, Halo Top and Enlightened is a keto junk food, you know, and I try and do it occasionally, like once a week, twice a week sometimes, you know, when I'm feeling little extra, like wanting some dessert or something. But honestly, lately I've been more into the full-fat Greek yogurt for dessert and some, like a handful of berries, strawberries. I got a thing for lately. So a little bit of that, a little bit of blueberries or blackberries, and that's pretty much what my desserts are in Veronica's Health Crunch. So yes, and I can still take down a whole fucking bag of that shit, especially on the trail.
Well, there was a time where I would buy the large container. I don't even know if it's got to be more than a pint. It's got to be a quart, right? The large container, the total 5%. Yeah. Is that a quart, the large one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that lasts me a while.
Yeah. That will. When I was eating that every day, I would take the Veronica's Health Crunch and I would dump an entire bag of Veronica's Health Crunch into that, eat about a third of it, then get another. I mean, I wouldn't eat it 3 days in a row, but then I would get another full bag of Veronica's Health Crunch and dump it in it and eat it like right out of it. Yeah. You know, that was, and you know, that's like my snack. Is it literally making like almost like a porridge out of the Greek yogurt and the Veronica's Health Crunch.
I put Lily's chocolate chips in that sometimes, along with a little packet of stevia erythritol to sweeten it, and that's plenty of desserty for me.
Nice. Oh, and also Cheesecake Factory's low carb cheesecake. I always had great success with that.
It's total junk food.
Yeah, it's total junk. Yeah, it's all chemicals. So, it's all chemicals
and shit.
But you know what though? If you if you're contemplating this keto lifestyle, this switch, and don't ever think of it as a diet. It's a lifestyle choice. You have to go all the way into it. This isn't one of those things you do for 6 months, because if you switch back to carbs after that, you're going to get insulin resistance right back. You're going to get fatty liver right back. You have to realize
comes back, and it comes back quick.
Yeah, because you have to realize that we are being poisoned by our own government, and the standards that were set by the food industry to feed us was only to sell more food. It's not because this is the healthiest way to eat. It was done to sell more food. So if you go back to that standard American diet, you're going to go right back to what you were before. Yep. You have to realize that there has to be a change. Now, you and I have had this discussion before. I don't think keto is necessarily have to be the long-term answer. You don't have to stay keto the rest of your life, but you can't go back to the standard American diet. I find myself
paleo, whole food.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So as I find myself reaching an optimal weight where I literally can't lose anymore without becoming unhealthy, switching over to a paleo or whole food diet. Never plant-based. Fuck plant-based diets. Yeah. But as I switch over
fat still needs to be. Yeah,
you still have to have a large. We were our brains were derived from eating animals. Eat animals. Fucking eat animals.
Hashtag. Fucking vegans triggered and shit.
Yeah, fuck the vegans. So, oh my god. So somebody on Facebook, to go off topic real quick, somebody on Facebook the other day asked some questions on their own page about the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't 15 fucking vegans that jumped in with comments about plant-based diets, and I just...
Yeah, I get it all the time.
I had to just scroll on because I knew that if I started, I would not have stopped. It would have been worse than a Trump conversation. So anyway, as I reach my optimal weight, I don't feel like I necessarily will stay keto forever. I will incorporate whatever level of carbs do not create a weight gain.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel...
elimination style, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to all of a sudden eat mac and cheese. I will never again eat pasta.
Yeah. I'd say grain and sugar and vegetable oil should be off the table permanently.
Correct. Now, I have been accidentally riced a couple times, and I did not have a bad reaction. I have been accidentally, croutoned a couple times and had absolutely no reaction. I think anything super small doses, but I'm not gonna eat a loaf of bread.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go.
Dose does determine the poison.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna eat a sub. You're not gonna see me eat a big plate of pasta. Those days are I'm not gonna eat a bagel.
Yeah.
Never. Those things are forever off my diet. There's no reason to eat those. They're not food.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the thing is you have to analyze what is this thing going to do to my body.
Yeah. And a book I would recommend for you is Wheat Belly Total Health. I'm 3/4 of the way through it, and it goes over all the reasons why grain is a no. So, and one of them is glyphosate. Being a big thing, and there's a big lawsuit going on.
Yeah,
Monsanto can suck my balls and shit. So all my balls. Monsanto. It's right here, down there somewhere. You'll find them. That does it for this interview, and I'm hoping to get some more people in my life or around my life, or that they get people to go keto so that I can further, because not everybody's version of this is the same as mine. I mean, in the end, you tailor the diet to what works for you, but it's important to be able to identify when you're off the rails and when you're on track. And that is going to be different based on your physical activity, your lifestyle, your stressors. There's a whole bunch of factors on why we eat the things we eat that have very little to do with feeding our bodies when it has, and like he's saying, and I could probably take a cue, there's times where I might eat when I am not really hungry. Just eating for fuel, which is what we were doing back pre-agriculture. We didn't eat for pleasure because we didn't have an abundance of food. It was always trying to get enough calories in for our intensely physical lives back then. So this whole concept of comfort from food is something that was sold to us over the past 100 years or so. A lot longer if you think about agriculture, but that was more of a fighting famine type situation when agriculture came into the picture. But basically, this is going to be different. This journey is going to be a little different for everybody, but it starts the same. And that's getting your 6-week fat adaptation, feeling what it's like to be fat adapted for a while before you even consider a cheat day or a carb load or however. And I contend the cleaner you keep your cheats and the less often they are, the further you will come, with very little effort. Like, you won't have to run marathons if you don't ever have a fucking cheat day. It'll just take a little longer to get there, but I think you'll get there. So that's my thoughts on it. And I want to thank Chris for opening up about this.
No problem.
And he's, going to show us a picture. I know you're a little self-conscious about that shit, so
No, I just haven't been taking pictures. What I explained, and a lot of people that go through a large amount of weight loss, I lost almost a quarter of my weight.
Yeah, you always feel fat.
You still feel fat. And the thing is, so there's a cool mind experiment you can do where walk by a window where you see your reflection in the window and just catch it peripherally out of the corner of your eye, and you'll look thin. But if you look directly at yourself, you'll look fat. It's your mind still wants to see the fat version of yourself. It's crazy. So I have stopped taking pictures of myself for now, just because I become self-deprecating when I look.
So don't watch this video.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch the video. Plus, the camera puts on.
Just read the comments.
Yeah. I'll read the comments from your people. I don't think so. I'd rather not. I've gotten bashed enough over the years.
So if you found this video enlightening or entertaining in any way, please head to ScottTheTruckDriver.com and leave a tip in that virtual fucking tip jar. Also, the weekly podcast is still available, and it still seems to be something you guys want, so I'm going to keep doing that every Friday. So look forward to that this Friday. And have a nice... Oh, wait, one more thing. I almost forgot my normal shit. I'm not a fucking expert. Neither is he.
Nope. Well, I'm an expert about muscle.
He's not an expert.
I am an expert about muscle.
He's an asshole. I'm an asshole. He's an asshole.
I am definitely an asshole.
We's assholes.
Yeah.
Do your homework. Do your research. It's all this knowledge is out there. A lot of the knowledge he's doing for the athletic side of this, he is doing beyond my research, because I honestly don't give a shit about the athletic side as long as I can do the things I want to do. So take your journey where you will take it. Do your research and then apply it. And if you fall off the wagon, and I'm witnessing that a lot with people that I'm trying to help do this, you got to get back on, and you got to try to ride it out longer before you fail again. And make no mistake, just like he did, I also, in the beginning of this journey, fell flat on my ass many times. And it just kept getting up and doing it again and trying to go longer until I got to a point where I liked the way I felt on keto more than the way I felt on the standard American diet foods. All the foods that are comfort foods and pizza and pasta and all of that shit. Once I got rid of a lot of that, I don't go back. Like, I'm eligible for a cheat day right now, my 3-week rule. And I've had opportunity, but I didn't want to. Like, I went to a picnic this last Sunday and I didn't cheat. I could have. And part of me wonders about the taste of pasta again, but ultimately I've not gone back, and because I know so much about the shit and I know it's poison. So you'll get to that point, but you gotta just keep trying and shit. Any more words of inspiration for motherfuckers?
To follow what you just said, I don't cheat. The only cheats that I have had through this whole process are when I have gotten accidentally carbed. Remember, you were with me that one time we went to Texas Roadhouse, and they gave me a real Coke instead of a Diet Coke. Yeah. And I was so inundated with flavors from the peanuts, the salt from the peanuts, that I didn't recognize it at first, and I drank almost an entire Coke. So I got nailed with a shit ton of carbs. And you know what? I didn't gain any weight the next day. I ate a fucking pound of prime rib that night and did not gain any weight. So I think if your body is functioning properly, if you've put things back where they're supposed to be with the pancreas and the liver, you can absorb a cheat day. But I won't cheat
because... It still determines the poison. Like, if you did it every day, you'd be fucked.
But that's what I'm saying. So I don't have cheat days because I'm afraid that as soon as I emotionally say, yeah, it's okay today, then I'll say it easier the next time. So I don't cheat at all. The only time I break ketosis, I never break it on purpose. The only time that I ever get carved up is completely on accident. I refuse to purposely cheat just because I don't want to go back there again. I have repeatedly had to tell myself that I will never get fat again. I refuse to ever let myself get fat again. I'm in my 40s now. Yeah. I do not have time to start the roller coaster. that's a good way to kill your heart and have a grabber. If you start going up and down with a roller coaster of weight, that's where you start having really bad atherosclerosis and cholesterol problems. And I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah. And a quick side note, if you eat out all the time, you're at high risk to getting accidentally carbed because they're putting sugar in shit that shouldn't be in shit. So be very picky when you eat out all the time. I'd say Longhorn's a fairly good bet. I've eaten there. And I've never really felt like shit afterwards. So, but there have been restaurants I've gone to where I went in and I knew they fucked me. So, that's it. Have a nice motherfucking day.
And shit.